It's October, so we're scratting apples. We picked these apples 3 weeks ago, and they've been sitting in the bothy bletting, so just maturing a little bit and softening up. And today we're putting them through the scratter. It's quite hard work, and turning them into a pomace. There's some down here, which we'll leave for a couple of days, and it will oxidize and the pectins will start moving around, and then we'll press it in about 2 days' time and get a lovely brown juice.
Goes round Thank goodness for that.
So here's all the pomace. Quite a bit there actually, probably about 25 kilos, ready to go in the press in a couple of days' time. 3 days later, the pomace is looking really nice and brown, and it's also really solid, and I can feel the juice even when I'm just picking it up and putting it in. So we're in the cidery, and this is really oxidized. This should give us a lovely dark juice, and just filling up the press, one of those weird things that only gets used once a year. So we've got a net bag here, and just fill that up with the pressings, and then fold it over really well like that. This is a great press. It's a swing press, which is better than the ones that have the rod up the middle, I find. And then off we go for the first pressing. Let's see what the juice looks like. Okay, spin away it. So these apples have matured in the shed for 3 weeks, and the pomace has had a good few days oxidizing, which is why it's so dark. So we should get a really lovely dark juice out of this any second, with a good level of sweetness. And then what we'll do is later on we'll do a little trick to make the pectins stick together, and hopefully we'll achieve, as we did last year, the chapeau brun, which is when the pectins come to the top, and we're left with a very, here we go, look at the colour of that, that's beautiful. Okay, just ease it off, Hect. Let the juice run, and then just gently, yeah, look at that, that's absolutely beautiful. Oh, it's like caramel. Very tanniny, because we're using that mixture of Brittany and West Country cider apples, lots of small bitter apples, and this is just what we want. This is going to make an absolute stonker. This is what we're making here is a Normandy style cider rather than the more normal British styles, although this is how a lot of cider was originally made in Britain. It's just that we've been seduced by the sort of Somerset scrumpy culture. So, because these are very bitter, tanniny apples, they're not actually very good for fermentation. And what we're doing here is just adding a tiny weeny little bit of calcium chloride salt, which will help the pectins in this juice to cling together and form this thing called the chapeau brun, which is a layer of pectin on top of the must. And by doing that, it will remove a lot of the nutrients for the yeast, which sounds bad, but it's actually exactly what we want, because it will mean that the fermentation won't be complete, and we'll be left with some stray sugars in the final cider, which will give it that hint of sweetness, which with the tanniny apples will give a flavour of sort of smoky bacon crisps, with apple on top. And if we catch it right, and we did this year, and we bottle it just at the right time, it will get a nice fizz, and will be just like a good Breton or Normandy, or indeed, as British cider used to be years ago, what's called a Keeved Cider. last drop of juice coming out now. We're just shy of 20 litres, but that's double what we got last year, which is partly because our little orchard's come on a little bit, but also leaving the apples once they've been scrattered for a little bit longer seems to have yielded more juice and a much nicer, darker juice. It's also, I think, a little bit sweeter too. So we'll just let this run through. Hecky, let's just grab the other side of this and swap it out. Catch the last dribble in here. What we do is we'll just work out how sweet it is. So we'll just take a hydrometer reading on it. So we just use this to see what the specific gravity is, and then from that we'll be able to work out roughly how strong the cider is going to be. So just get a good reading on this. We're at about 1045. So that's got the potential for just over 5% alcohol, but because it's the imperfect fermentation that I described earlier on, it won't go right the way down to a specific gravity of 1. So that's about 5.2, but we'll have probably half left. So it's probably going to be about 4 to 4.5% ABV once it's bottled, which is perfect.